the official nominees for that. So that just came out today.
Yeah, nice, nice. All right, guys. Not that I want to, but it's probably, good to go back and just revisit the last couple weeks. We talked about going into this stretch, what a challenge it would be. And it has proven to be that. I think, to the credit of the Mountain West Conference, you look at Utah State AP poll, I think Utah State is 18th in the country, and Fresno is 20th. I think the coaches poll, if I'm not mistaken, Utah State's 20th and Fresno is 23rd. So we've played two really good teams, and there's no way around that. With that said, we haven't been as good as we hope to have been or should have been the last couple weeks. We stood here last week and talked about the Fresno game. I'm not going to revisit that. The Utah State game was an eye-opener. It was an eye-opener in that, with college football the way it is, with the proficiency of the passing game, what it can be on any given week. We got caught in that situation up in Logan, Utah. Give them a lot of credit. It reminded me so much of being at a basketball game with that big student body behind their bench over there and the momentum of the game, the momentum of the game and just showtime. That's what that reminded me of. The quarterback very good, the receivers very good, and just bang, 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 bang. The whole atmosphere of that reminded me of a game like in the pit when it just gets rolling. And I give them a lot of credit. As I said, though, we should be better, and that's what Sunday was spent on as coaches without the players here, which we normally bring the players in. So I'm not going to go into all of it because with any family and any team, things are meant to stay within the family and the team. But we all know that, accountability starts with the head coach, and there's accountability when you have something like that happened in Logan, Utah. It's not good enough just to say, okay, their quarterback this, their receiver this, their defense this. That's a loser mentality, and we are not that. So, looking at a lot of things, start with the kicking game. Pretty good. Andrew Shelley, 53-yard field goal, second longest in school history. A guy that was a walk-on. He's a freshman. He's got a lot of football left. 53-yard field goal. Outstanding. Our punter, I think 8 punts, has improved his operation time dramatically. Did a really nice job. Kickoff return, something we've been really good at. We fumbled a kickoff return. You notice Lilly wasn't back there. He had a hand injury. Dejon Rogers became the primary returner, put the ball on the ground. Punt return, we've been good. You notice Marcus Hayes was out of the game in the first quarter with concussion symptoms. He won't play this week. We had 2 punt returns. One was a fair catch and one was safe punt where we left the defense out there. So not much there. Kickoff coverage continues to be really good. We've kicked the ball off, I think, 26 times. We kicked the ball off last year, returnable kicks, only 6 all season. We've been outstanding in kick coverage. So kicking game, pretty solid. Not a lot of wild plays. And this is kind of a big picture thing, too. Offense, without getting into all the details, so many missed opportunities of chunk yardage scoring plays Saturday against Utah State. Not to be unexpected, not to be unexpected. We are going through growing pains. We don't have all the nuances of throwing the football as much as, say, a Utah State did. Unique to watch that game, and Utah State's defense and New Mexico's defense is about exactly the same. I mean, you could go through that entire game and look at every defensive play on either side of the ball, and it's the same schematic defense for Utah State and New Mexico. The difference how proficient they were in the nuances of throwing and catching that ball compared to us. We had 8 drop passes. And we're doing it again without the threat or the percentage of option quarterback run football that we counted on for the season. So bottom line with all that, offense, there continues to be some really, even though we've scored really 7 points against Colorado State, because we had a 5-yard drive against Colorado State after the punt return. That doesn't really count. We had 7 points against Fresno, and we really had 7 points against Utah State. Now, within there were opportunities to score other points. You know, the end of the Fresno game, we throw the interception against Utah State. They run it back 100 yards in the second series of the game. Even though it's been really 7-7-7 in the last 3 weeks, you see video evidence on tape that with more polish, with more being able to pick up the nuances in the passing game, running routes, completing plays, even though we're not schematically what we thought we would be, there's positives there. Now, we got to be able to execute. But that's to be expected. Defensively, different story. You know, we have, again, the proficiency of people to throw and catch the deep ball. Make no mistake, in a self-study, that not making plays on contested balls has been a liability for us. Credit to the other team, whatever that is. There also, though, have been some things that shouldn't have happened. You know, the screen passes Saturday where they pick up huge chunks of yardage. You know, we turned a tight end loose in 3-by-1 when the backside safety didn't do what he was supposed to do. The week before, we had a couple little angle routes to the tailback where they caught it where it was uncontested. There have been some uncontested, poorly things done on defense. Overall, though, it is the proficiency of the other offense throwing and catching the ball, to the credit of what's going on in college football. So I'll stop there with there's an accountability. There's a continued emphasis on what we can do to fix things. There's also a realistic piece to this. But the bottom line, it hasn't been as good as it should have been the last 2 weeks against 2 really good teams. We're going to continue with good teams. San Diego State coming in here. Air Force is Air Force. You're playing them at their place. Boise, Wyoming. We're in a really good league. We're not playing as good as I hoped we would play right now. It's not as good as I hoped it would be right now, but you've got to accept and you've got to embrace the challenge, and that's what we're doing. You know, we're going to fight, and stay together and try to get this thing resolved here. That's it. Steve?
You know, Saturday's result, you could see that UNM's not a championship team, has a ways to go.
Yeah,
to be a championship team.
we do.
Do you believe this program can get there, and do you believe you're the coach to do it?
You know, I think it's tough to answer that question right now. I mean, I would be naive, or I'd be burying my head in the sand if I didn't say this is very difficult. This is a very difficult situation. That's the reality of that. But now's not the time really for that conversation. You know, we've done what we've done offensively here that created a little niche, and we won some games 2 years in a row with a bowl game. Defensively, we have not got it done overall. We've been more conventional to a degree on defense. I need to reevaluate that in the big picture of what it would take here to consistently win. There's a lot of complicated dynamics overall that lead to what happens on that playing field. There's a lot of complex issues from A to Z. And now's not the time for that overall conversation. I mean, I've lived that for 7 years, trying to do what we need to do in our specific situation to have success. We had some success, but to maintain success against an upwardly moving conference is a whole other conversation. But with that said, I am accountable, me solely and our team, for what right now is and what last Saturday was and the Saturday was before. But that bigger conversation is a legitimate conversation that needs to be had, should be had, and I hope will be had on the complexity of all of those issues. But make no mistake, when we walk out there in Logan, Utah on Saturday, none of that matters. What matters in this profession is what you put on tape and what the results are. So I hope I've answered that. It's a complex issue from A to Z. But what we need to deal with right now is Saturday, and take accountability for whatever happens.
Coach, I guess the main thing, time is what's needed, right? I mean, when you talk about the complexity of all these things, time is am I right about that? Or?
Well, we've had time. I've been here 7 years. Now, it's an ever-changing dynamic, particularly when you are changing offenses, particularly when you have kind of have gone into a different mode. Yeah, obviously for our team, if we're just talking about our team, particularly on offense, it takes time to get the nuances of throwing and catching the ball, because we have not done as much of that as other teams doing what we are doing right now, particularly because we don't have the quarterback runs and the quarterback option. We're 100% of that. And not to go off into a clinic again, but something that you see in college football just changing yearly, the nuances of throwing the deep ball in college football. Very seldom do you ever see, unless it's a wide open, uncontested receiver running down the field where the ball's overthrown, where it's just a foul ball. Any contested ball now becomes a throw in the area where a big, talented receiver is going to go up and have a chance to make the play on the ball. It used to be years ago, you'd just see some foul balls. Some guys open, but the ball. There's a lot of nuances. You know, you watch Stanford, and they're like with big receivers, like they're playing basketball, and just shielding guys and using their body. I could keep going. We're in the first stage with our third quarterback, who has played the bulk of the season for us, trying to do what other teams like Utah State have been doing for a long time, particularly the last 2 years, if you use Utah State as the example. So it does take time with our offense. Now, there's some other things. It takes time with a new kicker and a new punter. We've done pretty good. It takes time doesn't work when you talk about our defense, though. We've had time. There needs to be a full assessment after the season, not now, of can you do it at a New Mexico being a somewhat conventional style defense that you try to keep building, you try to keep recruiting, you try to keep developing. Now, at the end of the day, you still better have guys that can cover, because this game has turned into you better cover. This isn't 10 years ago. This isn't 15 years ago. So we've played a lot of man early. We paid the price for that. We're into more zone now. We paid the price for that. It's a huge conversation and a huge analytical thing. But there are a lot of complex, different issues when you're standing here with this behind you right here. That's the reality of all this. And you guys know that. That's the reality. Now's not the time for all those big conversations.
Coach, shifting to San Diego State, the last 6 games have all been extremely close, one possession or less.
Yeah.
Scoring differential. What stands out about them on tape? Defensively, staying close in games, and offensively, grinding it out.
I think, first of all, they're really good on defense. And Rocky continues to do what Rocky has done. And I did something today at practice where I said, okay, for the offense, it's 1st and 10 right now. It's 1st and 10 for the offense. Defense, it's 3rd and 6 for you. You call every defense like it's 3rd and 6 on defense, because that's what this defense is. And a lot of guys have tried to do it at different places. It hadn't gone well. Rocky has been able to continue to do that. You know, their defense jumps out at you. their offense is very complementary to their defense. Really good players, really big players, and are able to line up and run the ball. They're able to run the ball. So they're going to play close games every week because they're good on defense, and they're going to line up very physical on offense and run the ball. Overall, really good players with a style that is their style, a kicker that is the best we'll play against. The kicker is unbelievable, and they've won some games because of the kicker. So really good. If you say Utah State's 18th and Fresno's 20th, San Diego State, with games left to play, is hovering around right there because they beat Arizona State this year for the second straight year. They beat Boise at Boise. They're hovering right in that conversation somewhere. Really good.
Coach, a Division I football player, a Lobo, you get banged around a little bit, a couple of weeks in a row. Schematically, that way, but emotionally, do you get banged around? Does your enthusiasm get banged around? Does your positive energy banged around? If so, can they rise again in all those categories?
That's accepting the challenge right there. And that's a legitimate question, maybe the most important question. Maybe the most important question. That is that inner struggle right now. The human struggle, right? That is the struggle. To be on that sidelines or be in that locker room when it was 51-5 or whatever it is, nobody wants to be in that situation. Nobody. With that said, again, and I know this sounds hollow, I am proud of how we get through that situation and got through that situation. But that is the question that each player internally has to answer. What's your motivation? What's your pride? What's your heart? That is the question. You know, it hasn't gone as well as we hoped it would have gone. We've lost 3 straight games. It's a danger zone, and we have really good teams coming. And we're injured. We're injured. We're injured at a lot of spots. That's what college football is. And that's why this is the greatest game there is, because you can't duplicate the character check position you get put in. As coaches, too. As coaches and players. And we've spent a lot of time on that. And that's why I wanted to have Sunday, just to reorganize with the staff a little bit, get aligned in what our message is of demanding accountability, but in no way thinking we are blaming, because it starts with us. But that's what it is, right? That's what it is. It's can you accept this challenge? Okay? All right, guys.
You talk about how Andrew Shelley has developed as, you know, like you could say he's a freshman, you gave him the scholarship and everything, and then I was talking to him earlier, and he was telling me he even played tackle in a game when he was in high school on the offensive line. So
I joke with Andrew Shelley a lot about the best kept secret in college football. Now, we might have let that out of the bag a little bit up there at Utah State because 53-yard field goals resonate with a lot of people. He's changed his body. You know, I didn't realize he was quite as big as what he told me he was earlier in his career. That's why I think the upside for him is so high, because there's a lot of development left with him physically. You know, I noticed right away he had a pretty strong leg. So, you know, hopefully I'm right when I say best kept secret in the country. But he definitely has an upside. He has an upside.
Last one is Fred.
Gerhardt, after playing, he didn't play a lot, but after he played, is he doing fine? And then what changes do you think we're going to see now with him in there? That's what I was asking.
You know, I think, you know, part of the evaluation, obviously, to start Gerhardt this week, does come from some of the inconsistent play of Sharon. You know, we threw 4 interceptions at Utah State. Sharon threw 3 of those. He's done some really good things. I can't go into Gerhardt without talking about Sharon, because Sharon's going to be back out there. It's not like Sharon disappears. You know, it's still on. But the inconsistency of it, you know, part of it, he's been put in some difficult situations, all the above. Gerhardt just let us execute the offense a little cleaner with less unknowns. Now, there's a trade-off with that. You know, Sharon would step up and make some flashy plays, whether it was coming out of the running, scrambling, throwing the ball around. Gerhard just allows us at this early stage of this offense to know what's coming more. There's less surprises. And he reads things a little better because he's read things before. We still have the problem of health. You know, he's not 100%. He's not 100%. So I don't think dramatically the scheme's going to change much. We're still paper thin at that position. We don't know how healthy he is. But he does give us an opportunity to settle down a little bit and really run the offense through its reads. Where with Sharon, it was still a little bit hit and miss. But he's talented. The upside for Sharon is pretty high, and I think everybody can see that. All right, man, appreciate you now.